Hi everyone, I hope everyone is doing great and thank you so much for clicking on this video. Those who don't know us, my name is Marina Selby and I'm a real estate agent servicing Toronto and a GTA, and I have Louis with me, who is the mortgage broker, Miriam, who is a real estate lawyer, and last but not least, Darren, who is our wonderful home inspector. And we are a team. We all work together helping clients close the deals and move them into the new homes. And today we're going to give you a quick market update, discuss the upcoming rate increase in the end of October and how it all will affect you, as well as talk about what is happening on the market and where it's all going. So without any further ado, let's just dive right in. And I'm thinking we're going to start with you, Louis. I'm going to pass it on to you. And I'm very curious to know, to hear what are your thoughts? What are you seeing on your end? Are the homes more affordable right now, Louis?
So what a lot of my buyers, prospecting buyers are now asking is, Louis, like, is this really the right time to be buying? I put into perspective what it was like buying a house during the peak. So like, let's say I take, for example, January of this year, take a $700,000 listing back in January. People that were trying to buy that $700,000 house would need to be paying, what would you say, like 900,000, $1 million? You're essentially saving potentially $200,000 to $300,000 for that same property had you bought it today versus had you bought it earlier this year. You're going to say, okay, Louis, that sounds great and all, but back then interest rates were at 2%. Now they're at 5 or maybe even 6, right? How does that play into it? And so if you think about it, you're saving $300,000 for this house, buying it now versus buying it back in January, but you're paying $50,000, $60,000, let's call it even $100,000 worth of interest more. Mm-hmm. Your net, you're still saving $100,000 to $200,000, right? And to take that even a step further, that person that bought that house in January versus the person that's buying the house now, you're both going to be renewing that mortgage in 5 years' time. So you're both going to be in the same boat 5 years now, and you're both going to be subject to what the interest rates are going to be like 5 years from now. But the difference here is that person that bought the house in today's market won't be paying interest on the extra $200,000 to $300,000 that they had bought that house for back in January. Right? So that's really what I'm telling a lot of my buyers, that right now it's actually a great time to buy because you're not having to pay over asking, right? And then to tackle the other component of that, which is, Louis, like, I'm so worried about housing prices still tanking right now. We're trying to wait to see where the bottom is. And I think, we had this conversation before, and you can't really time it. As with anything else, it's really hard to time anything. And quite honestly, by the time the general public figures out where the bottom is of this real estate market, everyone else will figure it out. Mm-hmm. And guess what happens when everyone figures out that that's the bottom? We're back into a feeding frenzy of a market again, and everyone's going to be overbidding for houses. So you're basically back in the same situation.
And that makes perfect sense. Absolutely. The rate hikes have brought down the prices, but not the affordability, right? And on top of what you just mentioned, you will be also saving money on a down payment, obviously, and the land transfer tax, right? So because the prices went down. So that's also something to think about if you decide to purchase the property right now. In terms of the market update, just wanted to mention a few things that really stood out for me for the past month is, for example, the inventory levels. The inventory levels are dropping. They're dropping significantly in Toronto and in GTA overall. I believe that because there's no motivated sellers right now. Those sellers who had to sell because they purchased something, they already did that. But at the same time, those properties that are selling, and they're selling quick, are the ones that are actually showing well. So there's no issues with those properties. They staged great, the photography is great, marketing was done great. Those properties create a lot of traffic, and that traffic brings the multiple offers even. I see it in many pockets of Toronto, in Durham, that happens, Markham, that's like every other house. And the buyers are not actively right now on the market looking for homes, going and visiting them, but they're constantly on the lookout for some kind of a good deal. So if you're trying to sell the house right now, the best strategy is to price it properly, competitive, as well as make sure that the house looks great. Also notice that a lot of developers, at least 5 or 6 developers that I know of, they cancel their projects, they put them on hold, because at this particular situation right now, with the resale prices going down, the pre-construction stays up, and they are not sure that they're able to sell the 75% of the units, right? The condominiums, especially because this is the minimum that they have to sell in order for them to start this project. And they can't lower their prices just because of the high prices of the construction materials. So they have to either cancel or just put it on hold, which creates an even bigger issue with the housing shortage that we have been experiencing in the past few years. The last thing that I also wanted to touch base on is the rental market. And the rental market is just as hot as it was. There's no sign of cooling off. The rental prices are about 20% higher right now. This is basically the quick rundown that I wanted to give in terms of the market update. So I'm gonna pass it on to Miriam. I'm curious to hear what you have to say. What are you seeing? And obviously your thoughts on changes that are happening with the market as well.
Sure, thank you. Well, I think we can all agree that it's definitely undeniable that there has been a shift or a change in the market from the beginning of this year. And usually because I'm towards the end of a deal, it trickles down to me. So what I've seen lately, I've seen two sort of big changes, and that would be in terms of closings. So generally speaking, you can push a closing date to whatever you like, but more often than not, I'm seeing the shorter closings. So the 30 days to the 45 days becoming more prevalent. The second big thing I'm seeing is definitely the conditions. The big one again, financing, and the second one would be the inspections. And lastly, what I'm also seeing, before I pass it on to Darren to talk about the inspections, is, and I haven't seen this very often, but I'm starting to see it again. It is conditions that are conditional upon the sale of the purchaser's homes. So those are the only ones that I see that are having the longer closing dates. So 90 plus dates typically will have that clause in the APS. So that's what I'm seeing on my end. And again, in terms of the inspections, I'm going to pass it on to Darren because that is his bread and butter. So take it away.
Awesome. Thanks, Marianne. Appreciate it. Yeah. So, what you guys already touched on, like the last, from first quarter going back a year, like it was just crazy. I mean, in general, real estate is not for the faint of heart, I must say. I mean, there's so many ups and downs and peaks and valleys, and yeah, inspections were very few, to come by, which was really unfortunate. I know some people, buyers are buying houses, have bought multiple houses, and they're, familiar with houses. They're somewhat comfortable, but there's a lot of first-time buyers who don't know much about houses. Learning about the house or knowing anything about the house is huge. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts, and it's sometimes not only about, oh my God, what's the house falling down? Is the foundation crack? What's going on? But, learning about the house, maintaining your house so it stays healthy and it stays in good shape for years to come. That's a whole big part of it, doing inspections as well, right? It's not just about finding big ticket items. It's about, our reports become like the operation manual, right? It's sort of learning about the house. You got maintenance items, small repairs, little things that you can kind of refer to from years to come to help maintain your house, to keep it healthy. It's nice to see conditions in. Like I'm seeing, a lot more probably since maybe June or so. It's been really hot. Like it's been really busy with conditions. And the other big thing about inspections too, it's about just providing the right knowledge. Like I said before, every buyer has a different tolerance of what they can handle, but I'm there to provide the best knowledge that you can take away and make the best informed decision about buying that property. That's really what it's all about. There's a couple of big, including us, inspection companies that have kind of been talking about making inspections mandate. Now, I don't know how that would look. There was talk about maybe every listing should come with a pre-list inspection. I'm a big fan of pre-list inspections. Okay, chances are you're probably going to get an offer with an inspection, most likely. And then you got to wait your 5 days, and then, there's some problems. Okay, now they want to negotiate, and that's taking more time. Well, if you do a pre-list inspections, that's designed to avoid all that. And it just helps smooth the whole real estate transaction together, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you're absolutely right. I'm also a big fan of pre-listing inspections, just because, first of all, what you're selling, because the buyer will bring eventually the home inspector anyways. And if he discovers or she discovers something, you're still going to have to deal with this, right? So might as well be ahead of that, fix any issue, and then you know what you're selling, and there's no surprises.
Coming from a perspective of the buyer, if I was looking to buy a house and there was two houses that were similar, and one had a pre-inspection done, like it adds a little bit more convenience to the buyer. And it also creates a little bit more confidence knowing that, hey, like this seller is not hiding anything, right?
And I also hear, of course I hear, the seller listing agent had their inspector do it. Well, is it really done right? Did they really do it? Did they, did they give corners, right? How can I depend on that? Well, I mean, I can only speak for myself, but I have a name up to uphold, right? I'm not going to do my inspections, my loyalty is to the home, right? I'm going to inspect the home as it is. And I got a name to uphold, right? I got my report, I got my name all over the place. Why would I do now just talking for myself, I'm sure in like any industry, there's different calibers or whatever, but I mean, as a buyer, you can also research. I mean, Google, you can tell right away if it's a pretty legit. Google the name, look at Google reviews, look at the website. There's little things that you could do. And hopefully the agent can kind of help you too. And some buyers feel more comfortable, they want to bring their own, and that's fine too. But not a perfect science, but
Yeah, but it still helps the listing to stand out 100%. Yeah.
Is rates going to go up more? It's more like, okay, rates are going to go up more, but where do we see the light at the end of the tunnel? Right? And I think that's the more prevailing question, and actually is the harder one to answer, because inflation is a lagging indicator, right? So it takes time for us to see, the impact of these rate increases. The CPI index for last month showed that inflation was cooling off again. It is slowing down, but I think it needs to slow down at a much faster rate before we can anticipate rates to stop climbing. I had a chat with lenders, and I don't mean to share this to scare anyone, but they're starting to see missed payments starting to go up now. Yes, I would say the light at the end of the tunnel is definitely there, but it's just so hard right now to gauge when that is. My guess would be probably, you're right, like I would say probably end of 2023, 2024. But what I tell clients is as quickly as the rates can go up, they can just as easily come back down, right? So just be prudent with their finances. I would say make sure you guys redo your budgets. Don't splurge right now. It's just not the time to splurge. There will be a time for it in the near future, but right now you have to make sure that you can still you can still live comfortably.
I think those are great points to actually finish this video on until the next month, until the next increase. And we're gonna definitely have a lot to talk about then next month.
Yeah.
But yeah, if anyone has any questions to any of us, please feel free to reach out. The contact information is always under the video. So feel free to reach to any one of us. We'll be happy to help. And thank you so much for joining us today.